Today is April 9th, 2018. It is the 14-year anniversary of badassoftheweek.com. My name is Ben Thompson, and this is the first ever episode of the Badass Podcast. Hi, yeah, my name is Ben Thompson, and we're going to do this. We're going to do the podcast thing. If you know who I am, that's awesome. If you don't, that's kind of weird that you're just checking out this podcast randomly, but I also feel weirdly obligated to explain myself here, so I'm just going to go ahead and give a little bit of background. Exactly 14 years ago today, I started a website called badassoftheweek.com, where I just started talking about all these really awesome historical figures and cool stories from history. And yeah, that ended up blowing up into, I think I'm at 11 books now, and I've been doing the website for 14 years. So I want to start doing this podcast. It's going to be bi-weekly because I don't really know what I'm doing yet, and it took me about a month to put this first episode together. Mostly I'm going to be doing interviews with some cool people that I've met over the last 14 years. Today I have a really special guest. It's my super good friend Brian Snoddy. He did a ton of the art for all three of the Badass books. He did the entire Ninja Stars suit for the Spades and Grenades. And we're just going to sit and talk about some of the cool things that have come up. We've shared Comic-Con tables together. We've talked to, we've been good friends for a really long time, and we have some pretty cool stories. And I hope it'll be something that's interesting to you. If it's not, I guess you can just send me a bunch of hateful comments and things, and I'll kill myself or die in a fire or whatever it is that you guys were going to want me to do. I'm going to need some feedback from you guys as to what you would want to see on something like a badass podcast. I can get on here and talk about different badasses from history or different time periods, things like that. I can have some pretty cool guests. I've got a bunch of really cool people lined up, and I think I have, if I'm going to do podcasts every 2 weeks, I think I have guests lined up through the end of 2018, which is pretty exciting. One of the cool things about doing all the Comic-Cons and the book tours and all of these things is that I get to meet a lot of really awesome, interesting people. And what I want to eventually do is interview these people and then tie their stories into some cool badass stuff, some cool history stuff, and we can get talking about all of this. As far as the website stuff, I made a really cool deal with a website called We Are the Mighty, so I'm going to be getting back into doing the weekly badass articles, and that's something that's pretty exciting for me. I've been on hiatus for maybe the last year. I kind of just got buried in writing these books. I've got 4 that are coming out this year. I've got a bunch of other really exciting things that I'm working on, but I got really buried, and unfortunately the website kind of had to fall to the side while I was trying to get caught up on everything. But I'm back in action now. Should be seeing weekly articles every week from here on until infinity. We're going to be seeing badass podcast episodes every 2 weeks from here until hopefully infinity. And that's going to do it. So let me go ahead and play this interview that I recorded. It's going to be a little rough. I've never actually interviewed anybody before in any professional capacity. So I think it turned out okay, and I want to play it for you guys. So without any further intro bullshit, here it is, my interview with Brian Snoddy.
Where are we going to start?
Okay.
We have a whole list of stuff, and we have nothing to talk about.
Okay, so I guess I'll say that I'm sitting here with my good friend Brian Snoddy, and we are doing the first episode of the Badass Podcast at badassoftheweek.com, and we have minimal idea of what we're actually wanting to do here or what we're doing, so yeah, we're going to kind of wing it.
We're just winging it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Where should we start? Do you want to give us a little background on you? I could do it, but it's probably better coming from you.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle back in the dark ages in 1983, and when I graduated, I wanted to draw Dungeons and Dragons stuff and historical things for a living. And eventually I did these things. And through a long series of events, I met Ben and worked on several of his books.
Yeah.
Three altogether, I think.
Yeah, so yeah. Brian did a bunch of the artwork on the first book, all the spot art on the first book, a bunch of illustrations on the second, and then pretty much half of the third book, Ultimate Deathmatch.
Yeah, at least a third, probably close to, probably
more than any other artist.
Yeah,
for sure. And then you did a whole set of the playing cards. You did all
I did an entire set. Yeah,
you did all the Ninja Stars. And Brian drew a line art of the Keep on the Borderlands that hangs up in my house right now.
Yeah, that's a long story right there. Yeah. That's Dungeons and Dragons first edition for all you kids out there.
Yeah, I should put a picture up when we post this. I could put a picture up of the original versus the Brian Snoddy version.
Yes,
which is significantly improved version, while maintaining the spirit of the original.
Exactly.
Okay, so we should probably tell the story of how I met you.
Yeah, that's a fun story. You have to tell it, and then I'll tell you my version too.
Okay.
Okay, this will be really fun.
Okay, so I was at my first ever Comic-Con. I'd never been to a Comic-Con. I had never done anything like this, so I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like totally like losing my mind, and I'm sitting at this table, and the first book is out. This is right after the first Badass book came out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm meeting people, and I'm losing my mind. And then maybe about a couple of hours into the first day of Emerald City Comic-Con 2009, 2010.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember exactly when it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian comes up to me, and Brian's wearing a Civil War shirt and a Civil War jacket, and he's like, "Hey, Ben, I'm Brian Snoddy." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "I did some art for your book." And I was like, "No, you didn't." And he's like, "Oh, my friend Matt Haley commissioned, like, subcontracted out some pieces of art for me to do, and I drew them, and they're in your book." He was like, "I did Wojtek the Bear, I did the HMS Victory, I did a couple other ones." And I was like, oh no, oh shit, I didn't credit you with any of those because I didn't know that they'd been subcontracted out to you. So Brian had done like 15 pieces of art for my book, and I had never, I say now that I'd never heard of you before, but I have, because every time we share a table at Comic-Con, somebody comes over with a magic card that you painted that I used to have in one of my decks, and I'm always like, "Oh shit, you did land tax?" I used to have 4 of those.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. I remember I went over to your table. I was so happy that the book came out, and I wanted to be nice and everything and say, "Hey, Ben, how are you?" Yeah, and because Matt Haley had called me up on the telephone one night, and he said, "Look, I've got this thing. I can't do all this stuff. You're into historical things, and so can you draw these things, and I'll pay you." I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And so I drew all this stuff, and I sent it in, and I got paid right away. So I was all happy. And so when the book came out, I was so thrilled, and I wanted to come over and say hi. And I was shocked that he didn't tell you. I just stood there like a jerk off going, "Well, what do you mean you never heard of me?" "No, I drew half the stuff in this book, you know." And,
he gave you all the complicated stuff too. He gave you all the stuff.
Yeah.
The HMS Victory has like 100 guns on it, and you had to draw them all.
I had to draw all that stuff, right?
Haley's a character too. He'll be on the podcast at some point soon.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he made that Comic-Con so much easier for me, because it was like my first, like I said, I'd never attended a Comic-Con before this, and like, you know, the book had just come out. I'd never met a fan before. I'd been doing the website for whatever 5-6 years at that point, but I had never really met any like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was I never signed a book before. I had to like practice my signature for a while before I went to my first show. So I wanted to like make sure it looked cool. And I sit there and I get there, like it started at like, I don't know what, 8. And I got there like a half hour early. I got everything set up. I made sure everything looked perfect. And I'm sitting there, and then Haley was the artist on. He had done a bunch of the art for the first book.
Yeah,
and
he did quite a few, and good stuff too.
Oh, really good stuff. Yeah, amazing work. So he was supposed to share the table with me, and I was all freaking out. And then he didn't show up. He wasn't like, the doors open, people come. I'm starting to meet people, but I'm still like pretty freaked out. Like, I met like 2 people, and then Haley shows up like an hour late. And he sits down, and Haley's like a vet. Haley's been doing this for a while. And he sits down next to me, and he plops down. And it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's just like, "Oh, God." And he just pulls out a flask and like takes a huge pull out of it. And I immediately loosened up. I was just like, all right, this is going to be okay. This isn't such a big deal.
Yeah, he carries a flask of whiskey.
Yeah. But then, we wanted to use you. I basically used you in every... Me and Brian have been friends ever since then. We wrote most of the books together, I feel like. You talked me through a lot of that stuff. Cause it turns out that... Years, that Brian lives lived about 6 blocks from my house. And so we would meet up
7.5, maybe. Yeah.
And we would meet up at our favorite bar at least once a week.
Yeah.
For lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was self-employed. Yeah.
Yeah. I was unemployed. I'd been laid off, and I was like, well, I'll just collect unemployment and finish this book while I'm waiting for. And we were going to the Kona Kitchen.
Kona Kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah. In Seattle every Friday.
Yeah.
At lunch.
For a couple of years, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I would write the Badass of the Week in the morning, and then when I was done, I would head over to UG, so I'd be there like 12 or 1.
Yeah.
And then we would just hang out and just shoot the shit for...
Yeah.
We used to be lunch. It used to be a lunch meeting, and then it got to the point at one point where we got lunch, and then we were drinking beers, and then I got my lunch to go.
Yeah. And then we'd stay. And then we got thrown out.
Yeah. And then we stayed. I opened up the box again and ate the leftovers for dinner while I was still sitting there. And then we ended up doing karaoke together until like 2 o'clock in the morning when they threw us out of there.
Yeah, and then they threw us out.
It's dangerous that you could walk home from there.
We would call a cab for you to go home. Yeah.
No, not then. Not at that day, because I was still living on 85th, so I walked home. It was like 5 blocks.
Yeah,
we were both walking, so it's who cares?
Yeah, because you would walk home then, and because that was in early days.
Yeah.
And then you moved to a different place. Yeah,
we eventually started putting me in an Uber.
Yes.
And it was always like the 2 a.m. Uber. After too much karaoke and too many longboard loggers. Once you start doing the karaoke, once you start going outside of the 3 karaoke songs that you do.
Yeah, it's Angie.
Yeah, me and Brian like to do the karaoke. If we end up usually if karaoke starts at UG's, it means we've been there too long.
Yeah, we've been there a little too long. Yeah.
Yeah. So once the karaoke gets going, we kind of have a competition because I believe that Werewolves of London is the greatest karaoke song of all time.
It's really good because you don't have to sing.
Yeah, you don't sing anything. The only singing is the ow, and everybody does it with you. It's short, everybody knows it, it's a cool song, and like you speak all of the lyrics. So me and Brian would always battle to figure out who would be the first person to put in Werewolves of London at the Kona Kitchen karaoke.
Yeah, but I always pay Sean $1.
Yeah.
So I'm usually first. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if I get it in before because you wrap the request in like a $5 bill and you always get to go before me. So I've kind of given up on it at this point. But yeah, we were friends for a while, and then we put our friendship to the ultimate test at that San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah, when we took the train trip.
Yeah.
33 hours.
36 each way.
It was 33. I thought it was 36. I thought it was 33.
Was it 33?
It could be 36. I lost track.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was more than a day and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 30 plus. And we took the train in coach, sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
And
we didn't get in any arguments or fights or beat each other up.
Yeah. We were there, and then we shared a table at Comic-Con for 4 days. Mm-hmm. And then we took like a 3-day break from each other. We just hung out in San Diego. You were with your family, and I was...
Well, I stayed at my brother's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he lives in San Diego, and so I stayed at my brother's house and my sister-in-law, and you stayed at the hotel downtown.
Yeah. And
but there's other stories there to it. Hold on a second, I got to go get a beer.
Okay.
Keep talking, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll yeah.
Where's the beer?
It's on the counter.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
And the opener should be in that drawer right there.
There we go.
Yes, so 33-hour train ride both ways. And we almost got thrown off the train like an hour into the ride. We almost got thrown off the train between Seattle and Portland. Yes, because we brought our own wine. Yeah. And they said, "Oh, we're going to throw you off the train." Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you got to you can't bring your own booze on the train." Yeah. But we were like, "We'll be fine. We got a backpack full of booze and and some DVDs." And I had like 3 or 4 bottles of wine and a whole bunch of food and stuff, and we were having a great time. We were going to watch The Wire. Yeah. But they were going to throw us off the train because you have to buy their wine, which is like a 375 milliliter wine.
Yeah.
And
Like $8 million.
Yeah, it was like $15 or $16 or something. So we bought 2 of those, and we drank them. And
then I went down in the bathroom and I filled them up with the stuff we had, and then we brought it back up. Yeah.
Yeah, we just took like 15 trips down to the bathroom to refill them.
Which is really weird because, you know, the train's rocking and rolling, so if you're trying to pour the wine in that bottle, I spilled a little bit.
Yeah,
it's the sink. Yeah.
It's a black belt level. Yeah, we're sponsored by Amtrak.
Yeah, exactly.
This podcast brought to you by Amtrak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for riding the friendly skies, or whatever.
Rails?
Yeah, the
rails.
friendly rails, yeah.
Trailing on the friendly rails? I don't know. Yeah, we ended up watching The Wire.
Yeah.
We only had one set of headphones, so we had to split the headphones in half.
We had to split the headphones in half, yeah.
We watched like the whole first season while you'd had no sound at all before we started splitting them.
Yeah, because we put on the words or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the subtitles.
Subtitles, yeah. Put on the subtitles. And I had memorized almost the entire first season of The Wire. And so I was quoting it before we were...
He was doing the lines while I was hearing them through the ears. Yeah. And it was good because I get a lot of suggestions for The Wire. I get a lot of The Wire.
Oh, really?
I hadn't written about anybody from The Wire yet. I don't know if I have yet. Maybe I should.
Yeah, because it's based on real people, and yeah, it's my favorite television series of all time.
Yeah. And then we played a lot of Brian's game Deadfellas.
Yeah.
Brian came up...
And you beat the crap out of me with that game.
13 in a row.
Yeah, 13 in a row. Yeah. Damn it.
So Brian invented a card game called Deadfellas. It's about whacking guys in the zombie mafia.
I invented it with my friend Jesper.
Yes.
He invented most of the rules. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You wanna walk us through how Deadfellas works?
So Deadfellas is a card game where you're mobsters and you hire a crew of guys and you try to whack each other out. The first person to whack out 10 points of other people's guys wins. So Ben and I played this thing all the way down.
You need some stuff in order to whack a guy. You get like these 3 mobsters that you start with, and then you have to give a guy, in order to whack another mobster, you have to get a weapon, a vehicle, and a disguise.
Yes.
And then you have to ditch a piece of the evidence after you whack a guy, so you can't just keep whacking dudes. Yeah. And you have to the card game is about like collecting these things, putting them on the right guys, and keeping those guys alive long enough to kill the rest of the guys.
And Ben beat me 13 times in a row on the way back.
The first 13 games we played, and I thought that like maybe I was like maybe he'd already had it in production. He had like prints of it out, and I was just like, I was like, maybe this game's rigged. Maybe
it's rigged. All right.
Maybe I outsmarted you. Maybe this game is like maybe there's a trick to winning this. Like I'm just really good. And I've never seen Brian mad, and like that was the closest on this thing that I'd ever seen to you being mad. You were just like, I invented this fucking game. You kick my ass at it. But then we got off that first train. We changed trains in L.A.
Yes.
And then we got on the second train, and then you beat me 7 in a row.
Yes, I did. Okay,
yeah. Yeah, I came back, and then I realized I wasn't as smart as I thought I was.
Yeah.
We almost missed our connection on the way back too.
Well, we had a half hour, and we went to Starbucks, and the line for Starbucks was like insane.
Yeah.
Right? And then we came back, we're like, oh my gosh, we got to get back on the train. And we kind of almost missed it because the train was delayed as well.
Yeah.
So, but then we got back on. We went from Los Angeles there, and then we went all the way to San Diego.
Yeah. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And, we should talk about when we went to the, when we were in San Diego, we went to the Top Gun bar.
Oh, yeah.
The KC barbecue
yeah.
down there.
Oh, that was a great place.
Yeah. They had filmed the bar scene, the karaoke scene in Top Gun.
The Tom Cruise movie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we had, they had the Maverick helmet was there, and like the whole ceiling was all like bras, right?
Yeah.
The ceiling was bras, and the back wall was like hats from different, because San Diego was a big naval town, so the back wall was like all hats from different ships.
Yes.
And then they have one of your pictures is hanging up there now.
Yes, they do, and from your last book. right?
Yeah, it was the painting you did for the USS Johnston fighting
Yes,
at the
yes, I did.
yeah, the Battle
Yeah,
of
I
Samoa.
donated it to him because they gave me just ridiculous amounts of adult beverages for free. And we went there and we put on our headbands.
Yep.
And
Brian has these Japanese like samurai headbands, and we were at the time of the night when we were gonna wear those around.
yeah. And it was interesting because I only wear those because my head sweats a lot when we do physical work. So it wasn't necessarily a style, it was utilitarian.
Yeah.
So we're hauling all that.
Yeah, we were
what
carrying all that gear.
All that stuff we had to carry into the
all the books, like, so we were sharing the table, and it was like you had all of your art stuff and your portfolio.
And that table was like 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah.
What they make it out of? Concrete or something? Lead?
Yeah. And then we had to carry all the books, which are heavy, the card
and it was
decks.
Like 4 blocks or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah. Just suitcase after suitcase. Because you can take as much stuff as you want on the train. That was the advantage to it, was that you could carry as much gear as you want. There was no like limit to the number of bags, so we carried everything on the train, but we had to walk it all from the train station to the convention center. Yeah. And then we went in there, but there was a reason you gave them that drawing. When somebody was like, it was interesting because I went there and I got along with these people, and I went there every day for lunch. And the last day I was there, because my pops worked for FAA, right? Federal Aviation Administration. And I met a FAA guy. I said, you went to FAA Center in Oklahoma City? Oh, did you know my pops? Blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, yeah, I knew it. And he bought me a ton of beers. And then the people behind the counter were really enthusiastic about the whole dynamic of the situation. So I said, hey, here, take a picture. And my last lunch there, I ate 1,000,000 chicken wings and I drank 100,000 beers, and they charged me $7.50. Oh man!
And I said, hey, here's a painting.
Yeah.
Here's a drawing. You put this up, and they were very happy. I was very happy too.
That was an awesome picture too, because it was it's from Ultimate Deathmatch. It's the one where it was the U.S. destroyer is going up against the the Yamamoto, the super battleship,
Absolutely.
like the biggest battleship ever built, and it's like a destroyer, and all he's trying to delay them from getting in and wiping out the landing craft that are landing on I want to say the Philippines. Yeah, it was this crazy story.
In the South Pacific.
Yeah, South Pacific. And it was this crazy story. The art's really awesome, and you can see all of the Japanese and the American aircraft are flying around, and the Johnston's in there shooting its guns everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool story, and that's a really fun piece. My favorite, I think, from that one, from Ultimate Deathmatch, it comes between the French duel, where the two guys were fighting for the battle for combat, try by combat, and the one guy is about to jab the knife
with a rondelle dagger.
And Brian's a big armor collector, so he gets all of the rivets right on all of the suits of armor, and he knows the names of all the helmets and all of these things, which is important for what I do, because
of course it is.
The first thing you see when you read one of my chapters is the picture. And if the art is wrong, if the guy's carrying the wrong kind of gun or wearing the wrong kind of armor, it immediately makes me look like an asshole. I don't know what I'm talking about, even though I didn't draw the picture. So I love that one. I love the look on the guy's face when he gets stabbed in the eye. And the Battle of Britain. That's a really cool one.
Yeah. I researched that for several hours. It took me an entire day to research that and an entire day to draw that picture. Yeah. That was a 2-day drawing. Yeah.
I loved that one with the Spitfire diving in on the Messerschmitts, and that's really cool looking. The one that Brian never forgives me for is that Brian.
Let's hear it.
Brian likes the cryptozoology kind of stuff. Brian follows a lot. He's really into a lot of that kind of UFO and cryptozoology stuff. So I thought that in the second book, when I was doing the mythology, I would have him draw the chupacabra. And he will never forgive me for making him draw a creature that we have no idea what it looks like, and there's 17 descriptions of it, and they're all different.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you tell a funny story about that with the redrawing it and the.
Yeah, I don't know how funny it is because I had a trauma during drawing. I spent, God, I don't know how many days researching all these descriptions of chupacabra, and then I had to draw it, and I was never happy with the finished drawing. So, what are you gonna do? Let's get on to another subject.
You have to draw what you get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
I hired you to do enough work at that point. You weren't going to tell me to get lost. Yeah. I heard somewhere, I think my brother told me that somebody got Wojtek the bear, the drawing that you did of the in the first book. There's a story of a bear that was picked up by the Polish artillery around during World War II, and they raised this bear from like a cub, and then they trained it apparently to carry artillery shells from like the supply train to the guns. And you drew that picture for the first book.
Yes, I did.
And my brother told me that if it wasn't somebody he knew, it was a friend of a friend, or somebody got that tattooed on them.
Yes, actually, the guy showed up at a convention and said he was going to get that tattooed on him. Now, I never saw the tattoo, but he said he was going to do it. So maybe that's. If you're out there listening, thank you very much. Thank you for supporting my artwork.
Yeah, email us a picture so we can
post
it somewhere.
Email us a picture. Yeah, please.
What else should we talk about?
A whole bunch of other stuff. I'm on my third beer, so it's gonna be really fun.
This is when we start talking about the real crazy stuff.
Okay, well, let's think of something good. Okay. Oh, nope, that's not able to.
I keep thinking of things that I don't want to talk about.
we can't talk about that one.
Yeah, I keep thinking of things that like we can't really bring up here. This isn't the appropriate forum for it. So Brian is an original magic card artist.
Oh yeah.
And I love the story. I gotta get another beer, so I'm gonna have you yak about this for a second. Do you want one?
No, yeah, please. Because I'm low.
Yeah. Okay. So I love the story about doing the original. So Brian's a first edition magic card like alpha artist, and so I love the story about you turning in that artwork.
Okay, I'll talk about that. Okay, so here we go. So I went to it's a convention here in greater Seattle area. It was called NorwestCon, and I met Jesper Meerfors, and actually I had met oh, thank you.
NorwestCon is where they give out the Hugo Award every year.
Yeah, they give out Hugo Award. Yeah,
it's a big science fiction like convention, fantasy. Well,
it's a science fiction convention as opposed to, because I was trying to find a place for it. Like, it's not really a science fiction convention, but it's a fantasy. It's kind of all
they give out the Hugo Award, and there's a lot of really, really cool stuff. Yeah. And there's a lot of really weird stuff.
Yeah, weird stuff too. Yeah.
I went there with I did a talk there once. We did a panel, and I went in to just walk around to see what was there. And the first thing I saw when I went into like the area where they were selling stuff, hanging from the ceiling, the first thing you saw when you came in there was a pewter model of two dragons fucking. And they had like gems for eyes, and they were like falling out of the sky like eagles, and it was hanging from the ceiling. And
I remember that one.
This was not the year that you were here.
When I went to science fiction conventions starting in the 1980s, back in the Civil War, they used to have hot-looking girls in little bunny rabbit bikinis and chainmail stuff, and it's not that way anymore. But that's how I got started in this kind of stuff. I met some people who were involved in comic books and Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff, and that's how I got started. I put stuff in the art show, and I made chainmail at the time, and I met a lot of people and got involved in the comic books and Saturday morning cartoons and stuff through the conventions there.
Yeah, you did Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder art too.
I didn't do Pathfinder art. I did D&D stuff. I did Saturday morning cartoons, and I did comic book stuff.
Yeah. You did this. Did you do Star Wars comic?
Yes, I did. I did classic Star Wars, which was done by Russ Manning back in the day, in the late 70s, early 80s. And then when I got involved in comic books, my coworker Rick Hoberg, who was an assistant to Russ Manning, got me into do cleanup for Russ Manning cartoon stuff, or comic book stuff, I should say, to do comic art. So it was in the newspaper, and then they cut them up, and they put them in the comic books, and there would be like a half of a C-3PO or something like this, or some kind of, and we'd have to finish up that stuff and do it in a Russ Manning style. And I did that.
Is it hard to like draw on somebody else's style?
Sometimes it is. For
Depends
me, it's easy because I've had to do so many art styles over my years. It's not hard. It's difficult, but you can do it. Yeah. So, and because I grew up on Russ Manning comic books and that kind of stuff, I'm familiar with his artwork, and I was able to do it. Yeah.
So, I like the story about how you were when you tell a good story about dropping off the magic card art.
Oh yeah, Peter Atkins's basement. Yeah.
So originally Wizards of the Coast was just like a guy, right?
Yeah, it was Peter Atkinson used to see my artwork because I was doing a lot of samurai and Viking artwork at the time at these comic book conventions, not comic book, but science fiction conventions. And he said, "Someday, Brian, I'm going to have you draw. I'm going to do a Viking game, and you're going to do all the artwork for it." But years later, Peter Atkinson, who was the boss of Wizards of the Coast at the time, I would turn in my magic artwork. I'd go to his house in Renton, and I'd knock on a sliding door, and they'd open up the door, and I'd turn in my artwork there.
It was like it was like oil paintings, and you were like,
they were acrylic paintings at the time, yeah.
And you were walking them around the back of the house and like knocking on the sliding glass door.
Knocking on the sliding door, and you'd open it up, and I'd turn them in, yeah.
For $50. That's true. It was $50.
$50 a piece, yeah.
And Wizards of the Coast stock.
Yeah.
Which ended up being worth something.
Yeah, which ended up being worth some money at the time, yeah.
So you did, how many magic cards?
Let's see. Over the time, probably about 150.
150 magic cards. Yeah, I always we share a table at, I think I mentioned we share a table at Comic Cons every year, and people always bring up cards, and I'm always like, oh man, I didn't know what you painted that one. Eventually, at some point, right when we were first becoming friends, I had to go through all of my old Magic cards and just thumb through every card to see if I had yours and pull them out and get you to sign them for me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I had your signed lava axe hanging on my fridge for 3 years.
Oh boy.
Brian tells a good story. Oh, hang on, I got it.
Oh, hold on a second. We have a beer emergency here.
And that's the last episode of the podcast, folks, because Brian just spilled a bunch of beer all over my computer.
No, stop it. It's just on the table.
It's fine. Yeah, Brian tells a funny story about he was playing Magic one time, and people ask him oh, do you play? He's like, I play sometimes. And apparently you were playing, and somebody killed you with lava axe.
Yeah.
And you were just like, you killed me with my own card.
Yeah, my buddy Delph. Yeah. And he goes, hey, sign it for me. After he killed me with my own card, he said, yeah, sign it for me.
I love that.
I
yeah,
did.
Just kills it and spins it around now that I've killed you with it, sign it for me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I'm going to frame it, put it up in my wall.
Yeah, that's a true story.
I like the revenge story about the Star Trek game with your friend.
So, my buddy Kevin was playing a Star Trek game, and it was like a fighting battle with ships and stuff. I can't remember the name of it. Star Trek Battles or something like that.
Something like that,
yeah. So his girlfriend was playing that too, and he had killed her.
She was awesome at it.
Yeah, and she was really good. Yeah, she was really good. And I used to go over to their place all the time. Kevin calls me up one day and he goes, "Hey, I just whacked out, Kim's characters and stuff. Can you draw me these Kazinti eating? Because I ate her crew or whatever, in this Star Trek battle thing." I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And so I drew.
You draw like his characters, like his character. They were like lizard guys, or
Yeah, no, they were Kazinti, so they were cat characters.
And she was the lizards.
Yeah, something like that. And anyway, so I drew this little cartoon of them eating these characters, right? So I did this drawing. I went to their place, and he says, "Oh, let's put this on the refrigerator." So put it on the refrigerator, like with these magnets and stuff. And so we're hanging out, we're doing our thing and playing D&D or whatever we were doing it. And Kevin's like, "Hey Kim, can you go into the refrigerator and get us a couple of beers or something like that?" And she sees this thing and just freaks out. Yeah, she just snaps like a postal employee and just starts screaming and yelling.
They're divorced now.
They are.
Oh shit.
Yeah, they got married. They're divorced. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a lucky guess.
Of course it is.
So we should talk about what you're working on now, right? Because you're working on some pretty cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. I am a full-time employee of Flying Frog Productions, and we make really cool card games and board games, mostly board games. And I am the designer and chief illustrator of a game called Shadows of Brimstone, and we're doing another one called Forbidden Fortress.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we have a lot of miniatures. I design all the miniatures. We have some sculptors who are doing some stuff with that. Very cool game. I recommend everyone who likes board games, you're going to love it. Yeah, it's cowboys meet Cthulhu monsters.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
So the premise of Shadows of Brimstone is basically it's like cowboy times.
Yeah.
But these guys are mining and they find this weird type of crystal in the mines.
Yeah, called Darkstone.
And it is like a power source.
It has supernatural properties, and it rips holes in time and space, and you get transported into these portals, and then you can do all these amazing things. Right? You can meet these monsters. You can get these kind of treasures. It's a dungeon crawl adventure game.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's very cool. Yeah.
And then you're doing the Japanese expansion for it.
Yes. But speaking of Japanese stuff, I did do a book that's recently published on Osprey, which I did do some illustrations. It's the biggest book on Japanese armor published in English in world history. Yeah.
And Brian's house is like a samurai armor museum. You have like a dozen suits of samurai, 7 or 8 suits of samurai armor, full suits, 9 full suits of samurai armor from like the
1700s mostly. Some stuff from the 1600s.
Yeah, and you have that naginata, and you've got the wakizashi. The wakizashi's from like 1400, right?
Yeah, late 1400s. Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, and then all the samurai helmets, and the naginata's really cool, and and they're gonna. So, what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Samurai Armor. It's written by Trevor Absalom, and I did all the black and white illustrations for it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's been working on it for the last four years.
Dang. And then you might be doing an exhibit at the SAM, you said, right?
Yes, next year. Next year in March, we'll be doing an exhibit at there's going to be a samurai exhibit, and they're going to have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of my armors there.
That'd be really cool. He's got one that's really awesome that has you can see like the bullet hole, like the dent from the bullet.
Yes. Yeah. Like the, musket shots. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we'll have you back before then to talk about that.
Sounds great.
And okay, well, I told you I'd keep it till 8, and it's 8
yeah,
now, so I'm gonna let you go.
We're done.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks so much for
this has been really cool.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll sound good when I splice it all together. And hopefully I know what I'm doing well enough that like I didn't that we haven't like not been recording this the entire time, and then I'm just gonna have like 2 hours of nothing to edit.
Sure.
Fantastic.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much to Brian for being on the podcast, for being the inaugural guinea pig for me, just hacking my way through my attempts at interviewing anybody. I think it came out pretty well. I would like to keep doing stuff like this every 2 weeks. If you have people that you think would be really cool for me to interview, send them to me. If you have thoughts, feedback, any of these things, post them as comments on the Facebook page or the YouTube page or somewhere where I can see them. Email's really bad for me. I'm really, really bad at responding to email. So if I've missed an email of yours, like, it's not personal. I really miss everybody's emails. There's going to be some supplemental material. Everything that we're talking about in the podcast, you'll be able to see on the page that goes along with this. It's going to be at badassoftheweek.com. If you have questions in anything, facebook.com/badasshistory, youtube.com/badasshistory, Twitter, I'm at badassoftheweek. If you have format stuff, any questions and answers for maybe future episodes, I'll answer your questions and stuff on here. Anything you want me to talk about, cover, any of those things. I also want to take a moment and say thank you to all of the patrons who follow me on Patreon. Aaron, George, Theodore, Robert, John, Daniel, Jacob, S22-132, Jameson, Eric Slater, Blue-Eyed Bard, Steve, David, Todd in the Shadows, Christian, High Plumber, Horchata Stout, Ricardo R., Christopher Wen, and Daniel Limey Boy McCoy-Carr, which might be my favorite out of all of those, except for possibly the horchata one. Thank you so much, and we will see you in 2 weeks.